The order exists before it is read. It moves without voice, without emphasis, without pause. It is typed, stamped, copied, and transmitted. Its language is exact. Its margins are correct. Its timing is precise. It does not argue for itself. It does not explain. It does not ask to be understood. It passes from one surface to another, from one set of hands to the next. Each transfer is recorded. Each acknowledgement is logged. Each recipient confirms receipt in the approved manner. The order advances through the system the way pressure moves through a sealed conduit, silent, controlled, inevitable. There is nothing unusual in its structure. The phrasing follows regulation. The sequence follows doctrine. The format matches hundreds of others that came before it. Because of this, it is trusted. No one stops to weigh it. No one slows it down. The order does not invite delay. It does not permit interpretation beyond what is written. It is complete. It is sufficient. It is final. Copies accumulate. Paper stacks align. Signals echo through channels designed to remove doubt. Each layer receives the same message, unchanged. Each layer passes it onward with the same certainty. The system functions as intended. Time becomes segmented by acknowledgement codes. Movement is synchronized by schedule blocks. Human presence is reduced to signatures, initials, timestamps. The order does not describe consequence. It only defines action. It instructs that something will occur at a specific moment, in a specific way, using assigned resources. It assumes compliance. The assumption is correct. Compliance is not a decision within this system. It is a condition of existence. There are no raised voices. No objections are registered. No alternatives are proposed. The order does not travel faster because it is urgent. It travels because it is authorized. As it descends, it sheds context. Each level understands only what is required for execution. The wider shape is irrelevant. The destination is unnecessary. What matters is alignment. Timing aligned to timing, unit to unit, movement to movement. The language of the order allows no space for hesitation. Words are chosen to eliminate uncertainty. Verbs are definitive. Conditions are fixed. There are no contingencies. There is no clause for reversal. The system prefers clarity to accuracy. It prefers consistency to correction. The order is not questioned because it does not appear questionable. It bears all the visible markers of legitimacy. It resembles success. It resembles routine. It resembles the thousands of directives that did not fail. Preparation begins immediately, not as anticipation, but as procedure. Materials are counted. Routes are cleared. Schedules are adjusted to accommodate what has already been decided. Each adjustment reinforces the assumption that the order is sound. The longer the system works to support it, the less conceivable it becomes that the order could be wrong. Silence surrounds the process, not the silence of fear, but the silence of agreement, the quiet confidence of a structure that has learned to trust itself more than any individual within it. The order continues downward, unaltered, untouched by doubt, accelerated by obedience. By the time it reaches the final level, there is nothing left to decide, only to execute. And long before the first movement begins, the outcome is already fixed. The environment that receives the order is already arranged to accept it. Every space within it is defined by function. Every corridor leads somewhere authorized. Every desk, terminal, and table exists to reduce deviation. The structure does not rely on persuasion. It relies on placement. People are positioned where decisions are unnecessary. The order enters this environment as one more component in a sequence designed to move things forward without friction. It does not disrupt routine. It completes it. Authority here is not dramatic. It is architectural. It exists in spacing, in access, in who is permitted to see which portions of information. The order travels downward through a vertical arrangement that narrows understanding at each level. What is comprehensive at the top becomes specific below. What is strategic becomes procedural. What is abstract becomes physical. No single point in the chain possesses the whole picture. This is not considered a flaw. It is considered efficiency. Each layer of command is trained to receive instruction, verify its legitimacy, and convert it into action appropriate to its scope. Verification does not involve evaluation. It involves confirmation that the order originated from the correct channel, bears the correct markings, and conforms to established formats. Those conditions are met. Meetings occur, but they are brief. Their purpose is alignment, not discussion. The order is read aloud exactly as written. Questions are limited to clarification of timing and allocation. Language is formal, restrained, stripped of speculation. There is no space in the agenda for reconsideration. The system rewards speed and consistency. A directive that moves cleanly through the chain, is evidence that the system is functioning properly. Delays are treated as inefficiencies. Deviations are treated as risks. Individuals within the structure understand their role. They are not asked to judge outcome, they are asked to ensure continuity. To hesitate would be to interrupt a process larger than themselves. To question would be to imply that the system is incomplete. The structure has learned to distrust interruption. As the order descends, it is translated into suborder. Each translation is precise. Each removes ambiguity by narrowing focus. What remains is a set of tasks that can be measured, scheduled, and confirmed. Responsibility is distributed so thoroughly that it becomes invisible. No one person feels ownership of the whole. Ownership is fragmented, parceled out in increments too small to carry moral weight. Each individual is responsible only for accuracy within their assigned boundary. The environment reinforces this division. Physical separation mirrors conceptual separation. Rooms are segmented. Access is controlled. Information flows vertically, rarely laterally. Coordination exists, but only through approved channels. The chain of command is not rigid because it lacks intelligence. It is rigid because it has been optimized to prevent disorder. Within this system, obedience is not enforced through fear. It is enforced through normalization. Those who function smoothly are promoted. Those who introduce friction are corrected, reassigned, or removed. Over time, the structure selects for compliance without needing to demand it. The order continues downward, acquiring momentum not from urgency, but from inevitability. Each layer adds confirmation. Each confirmation strengthens the assumption that the order is correct. There is a quiet confidence embedded in the process. The belief that if something were wrong, it would have been stopped already. The higher the order travels, the less likely it seems that error could have survived the ascent. The structure does not anticipate failure, it is designed to absorb it. By the time the order reaches the lowest levels of command, it no longer feels like a choice imposed from above. It feels like a natural consequence of alignment. Like the next step in a sequence that has already begun. The system stands ready. Everything is in place. Nothing remains but compliance. Execution begins exactly on schedule. There is no announcement, no signal meant to dramatize the moment. The transition from preparation to action is barely perceptible, marked only by the confirmation that the designated time has been reached. Systems that were idle become active. Movements that were rehearsed become real. The order does not change as it is enacted. It does not adapt to circumstance. It does not pause to reassess. It unfolds according to its internal logic, which has already been approved, verified, and distributed. Each element performs its function in isolation, synchronized by timing rather than awareness. Coordination exists, but it is mechanical. One action triggers another because it is scheduled to do so, not because anyone observes the need. Communication flows upward only to confirm completion. Downward communication ceases once execution begins. There is nothing left to instruct. The order has already said everything it intends to say. Those carrying it out do so with precision. Movements align with training. Procedures are followed in the correct sequence. Checklists are completed. Deviations are not considered, because deviation is not part of the task. The environment responds as expected at first. Timelines hold. Positions align. The system appears stable. From within any single segment, the operation looks correct. No one speaks unnecessarily. Silence is filled by motion, by the sound of equipment, by the steady rhythm of coordinated activity. The absence of debate is not oppressive, it is normal. The order does not require interpretation, and so interpretation does not occur. At certain points, information arrives that does not fit perfectly within the expected pattern. It is incomplete. It is unclear. It does not contradict the order directly. It simply fails to align with the assumptions embedded within it. These signals are acknowledged and logged. They are not escalated. The order contains no provision for reevaluation based on partial data. The system has already decided that what is happening is supposed to be happening. Execution continues. Timing remains paramount. Adjusting the schedule would require authorization. Authorization would require interrupting the chain. Interruptions are treated as risks greater than uncertainty. The order is followed because it is still valid. Validity, within this structure, is not dependent on outcome. It is dependent on origin. Those involved do not feel reckless. They feel correct. They are doing exactly what they were instructed to do. Exactly when they were instructed to. Using exactly what they were instructed to. The system confirms itself through motion. Each completed step becomes evidence that the previous step was right. Momentum replaces judgment. There is no moment where the operation pauses long enough to be questioned. Each segment flows into the next, carried forward by procedures that assume continuity. Silence deepens. not because nothing is happening, but because nothing is being reconsidered. By the time the first unmistakable irregularities appear, execution is already too far advanced to reverse without violating the order. And the order, still intact, still authorized, continues to move forward, indifferent to what it has already set in motion. The first indications do not arrive as alarms. They appear as delays that fall just within acceptable margins, as reports that lack clarity, but not credibility, as discrepancies that can be explained without altering the order. The system absorbs them the way it absorbs all irregularities, by categorizing them as temporary. No formal notice is issued. There is no pause. The order remains active. Information begins to arrive that cannot be fully reconciled with the assumptions built into the directive. Distances are not aligning with timelines. Responses are not arriving where they are expected. The environment is behaving differently than anticipated. These developments are noted. They are forwarded upward in standardized language, stripped of interpretation. The reports do not challenge the order. They simply describe conditions. At higher levels, the information is reviewed alongside schedules that are already in motion. To intervene now would require admitting that the order, already executed in part, may be flawed. The structure resists this conclusion, not out of denial, but out of procedure. The order does not contain instructions for partial failure. As inconsistencies accumulate, the system responds by reinforcing compliance. Additional confirmations are requested. Redundancies are activated. The same directive is repeated, clarified, restated, not altered. This repetition is not stubbornness, it is doctrine. When outcomes diverge from expectations, the response is to ensure that the order is being followed correctly, not to question the order itself. Execution continues under increasing strain. At lower levels, the effects are more immediate. Movements that were meant to intersect do not. Support arrives out of sequence. Resources allocated with precision no longer match the reality they encounter. Yet each unit continues its assigned task, because abandoning it would create a gap the system is not designed to fill. No one possesses the authority to halt the process entirely. Authority is distributed in such a way that stopping requires consensus that cannot be achieved in time. The order, still legally valid, continues to override situational awareness. Attempts are made to interpret the order more strictly, not more flexibly. Deviations are corrected. Adjustments are rolled back. The system seeks stability by narrowing acceptable behavior. Warnings become more explicit, but they are framed within the same procedural language. They indicate risk without assigning cause. They recommend attention without recommending change. The chain of command acknowledges receipt. Nothing changes. The failure is no longer theoretical. It is observable. It exists in missed connections, in unfulfilled assumptions, in the growing distance between what was planned and what is occurring. Yet the structure continues to move forward, because it was designed to do so. The order has not been rescinded. It has not been amended. It has not expired. And as long as it remains in force, the system treats its execution as mandatory, regardless of the evidence accumulating around it. The moment when intervention could have altered the outcome passes quietly, unnoticed, buried beneath confirmations and acknowledgments. By the time the system recognizes that something has gone wrong, it has already ensured that it cannot stop itself. The breakdown does not arrive as a single event. It unfolds as a widening gap between intention and result, a gap the system is no longer able to close. What was once misalignment becomes absence. What was once delay becomes failure. The order continues to operate, but its effects no longer correspond to its purpose. Connections fail to occur. Movements intersect where they were meant to avoid one another. Resources reach points that no longer exist in the form anticipated. The structure had assumed continuity. Continuity is no longer present. The system responds by completing the order. Procedures are carried out to their conclusion, even as the conditions that justified them disappear. Units arrive at designated positions only to find that the situation no longer resembles the one described in the directive. Schedules are fulfilled even when fulfillment no longer produces advantage. There is no chaos in the execution. The collapse is organized. Each segment continues to report each confirmation is transmitted upward. From within the system, the operation still appears intact. The order is being followed. That fact remains true even as its effects become reversible. Loss emerges not through dramatic action, through accumulation, through gaps that cannot be filled, through exposure created by adherence to a plan that no longer corresponds to reality. The structure does not recognize collapse as collapse. It recognizes only deviation. And deviation, according to doctrine, is corrected by reinforcement. Additional effort is applied in the same direction. Timelines are reaffirmed. Instructions are repeated verbatim. The assumption persists that failure must be the result of improper execution, not improper design. The order demands completion. As the scale of consequence becomes undeniable, the system's ability to respond diminishes. Communication channels fill with reports that no longer influence outcome. Information arrives too late to alter trajectory. Decisions that might have mattered now serve only to document what has already occurred. There are no acts of defiance, no spontaneous reversals, no decisive intervention. Those involved do not experience the collapse as a moment of realization. They experience it as a sequence of tasks that no longer lead anywhere. The sense of purpose dissolves, replaced by obligation without effect. The environment absorbs the damage unevenly. Some segments remain functional longer than others. Some continue to operate in isolation, unaware of the full extent of failure beyond their immediate scope. The order does not instruct retreat. It does not authorize withdrawal. It does not acknowledge loss. It simply ends. When the final action is completed, when the last confirmation is sent, the system arrives at a state it was not designed to interpret. The directive has been executed in full, and yet its objective has not been achieved. What remains is absence. Absence of the conditions the order assumed. Absence of the resources it expended. Absence of the outcomes it promised. The collapse is total not because the system failed to act, but because it acted exactly as instructed. And once the order is complete, there is nothing left for the system to do but record the result. After the order ends, activity does not stop. It changes shape. Reports are compiled. Not narratives, not explanations, records. Data is arranged into familiar formats. Timelines are reconstructed from timestamps. Actions are logged in the order they occurred, not the order they mattered. The language used is precise and restrained. Words that imply judgment are avoided. Words that imply causation are minimized. The system does not ask why. It asks what can be documented. Meetings resume under controlled conditions. Attendance is limited. Agendas are short. The completed order is referenced by designation, not description. Its outcome is discussed indirectly, through metrics and summaries that reduce consequence to scale. Loss is quantified. Deviation is categorized. Responsibility is distributed thinly enough to be untraceable. No single point in the structure is identified as the source of failure. The order was valid when issued. It remained valid throughout execution. At no point did it violate regulation. At no point was it formally challenged. Because of this, it becomes difficult to say where the failure belongs. The system prefers closure without conclusion. Files are archived. Some are marked for restricted access. Others are filed alongside operations that did not draw attention. The order's designation appears in indexes, but rarely in conversation. It is referenced when necessary, then set aside. Personnel are reassigned. Schedules are adjusted. New directives begin moving through the same channels. There is no ceremony marking the end of the operation. No acknowledgement proportional to its scale. The system does not commemorate failure. It absorbs it. In subsequent reviews, language becomes more abstract. Phrases like unanticipated conditions, operational complexity. These terms do not accuse. They explain without assigning fault. They allow the structure to move forward without revisiting the decision itself. The order is not revoked retroactively. It cannot be. Doing so would imply that authority is conditional. The system does not function on conditional authority. Instead, minor procedural updates are proposed. Adjustments at the margins, clarifications to existing protocols that do not reference the event directly. Lessons are embedded quietly, stripped of context, made general enough to apply everywhere and nowhere. Over time, the order fades into institutional memory as an anomaly, not a warning, not a precedent, simply occurrence. Those who executed it continue to operate within the same structure, their roles unchanged, their compliance intact. The system does not punish obedience. It depends on it. Eventually, a new order begins its descent. It carries the same markers of legitimacy, the same formatting, the same confidence. It moves through the same channels, received by the same structure, interpreted by the same processes that once ensured failure. Nothing in the system explicitly connects the two. And so the machinery continues, efficient and unquestioning, prepared to transform the next imperfect decision into action, exactly as instructed.